Look, we all know the drill by now. Most RPGs start with a cutscene, a voiceover prophecy, and some dude named Thalor Stonevoice handing you a glowing sword and telling you that the fate of the realm depends on your ability to find 3 sacred moon shards. That doesn't happen in Clair Obscur Expedition 33. These characters talk like actual people. No contrived lore dumps, no awkward as you know captain, just inside jokes, lived history, layered conversations, and things that you actually have to pay attention to. It's weird, it's refreshing, and honestly, it may be my favorite thing about the game so far. And the last bit of gaming news that I wanted to touch on here is going to be around Clair Obscur Expedition 33. We've talked about this. We spent a lot of time talking about it in the previous episode. We were still very early on, only a few hours in. I was only a few hours in. Jay was probably maybe an hour in at max. And I know that Jay has been spending a lot of time with Oblivion and
Yeah.
all of that, but I have gotten to spend some more hours with this game with Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and I just wanted to kind of provide some updates, provide some additional thoughts, and see what Jay thought about him as well. I was actually going to look for, well, I did look for the trailer, and I was going to have the trailer, the launch trailer, play as some B-roll for us while I talked. But in watching the trailer, I decided that there were some things in there that I would not want spoiled for me if I were one of our listeners and supporters. So I decided not to do that because it
Oh,
is
cool.
there's so many tiny little things that could be spoilers. But this game, as taken as I was with it before, still taken by it. So many things. I mentioned earlier that the soundtrack is incredible. The combat system, not only is it innovative and really engaging, it's also very essential. So we talked about how the combat system is turn based, but they have active elements to it where if you are attacking, you have a little quick time event where a timing game to make sure that you hit it the maximum of your power if you hit it perfectly. And then if you are defending, you have 3 options. Those are you can dodge, you can parry, or you can
Duck,
jump. You can
dip,
jump.
dive,
Yeah, right?
or dodge.
But yeah, you can dodge, you can parry, or you can jump, and you got to do it. You have to do it. This game is unforgiving, at least in the normal and harder difficulty levels. Is absolutely unforgiving. You will get one shot if you are not trying to dodge or parry. There are more than one enemy that will absolutely get you in one shot. So parrying is great because if you parry, you get a massive counter strike. However, if they hit you once and you parry once, well, then you do this massive damage back to them. But they don't always hit you once. You can hit multiple times in a single move. They can do the same thing, your enemy. So your enemy can say hit you, take 4 swings. If you parry 3 of those, but the last one hits you or one of the others hit you, you don't
Yeah.
get that massive counter hit. You have to parry them all. So the biggest thing to do is dodge. That's the most forgiving. So you dodge, get that timing down because every time you meet a new enemy, you have no idea what their attack pattern is. So dodge, nail that. Once you get a perfect dodge, that's the time that you need to start doing some parries. So the combat system's great, and the biggest thing for me though is the story. I just want to once again give them their flowers on the story so far. I've not even finished the game, but the story is really well done. It's very nuanced. And one thing that I really noticed as I played through the game and you talk to your party members and you go about the game and you kind of unfold it is and I wonder like what is it that I find really engaging about this? And it's that they talk like real people. They talk
Yeah.
like people are actually going to talk. So in so many games, you'll have if they're trying to do some sort of exposition or something like that.
So over the top, man.
Yeah, it's so like people don't talk. They'd be
So
like,
over the top.
yeah, it would be like, "Hey, this reminds me of that time that I fell off
Yeah.
the second story of that bar and broke my arm back in whatever, whatever." It's like nobody talk like they were there. They were there. Nobody talks like that.
Yeah.
Instead, this game will do things where if they were recalling back to that same thing, they might say something like, "Oh yeah, we know heights don't play well with arms or whatever." Like they'll just like hint at something,
Yeah.
and it's the way that you would talk to somebody that already knew what you were talking about.
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
because we'd say something like, "Hey, man, let's not do it. You know what happened last time.
Exactly, exactly.
And and
That's how people talk whenever you know.
and I'm fine with that. I don't need to know what happened that caused you to say, "You know what happened last time."
Well, see, that's the great thing is that they
Yeah,
do. They give you enough information. If they don't give you enough information in that first interaction, that interaction makes you go like, "Wait, something happened. What happened? What happened?"
yeah,
And then you'll find out what happened. You will get enough context, clues, and information that way peripherally that you'll
yeah,
eventually get to the answer that you're looking for. But they talk like people actually talk, and so it makes it feel so much more engaging and engrossing because of that fact. And I love that about it. So that's the biggest thing that I have gotten into and noticed as I've gotten further into it is the way that it tells the story is so much more engaging because of the things that they keep from you. And it's not, I mean, I'm sure there are some very strategic things in the way that they are hiding different story elements
yeah.
to it, but it's also the intrigue is just there naturally by not doing the blatant exposition in a way that nobody actually talks. So whenever you play, you will want all the context you can get about everything. There's a
I
lot
can
of
tell you right
characters.
now, it's one of those games where I'm waiting on that rainy day Saturday where there's no constraints against my schedule or time, and I can just curl up in the chair and play it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know that
Or
you
at
and I are.
least get a decent amount into it to where I'm
Yes,
in.
and I know that you and I are both big consumers of lore when it comes to games. Like, hey, we
Yes.
want to talk to all the we want to talk to all the randos. We
Yes.
want to read all the little snippets on everything that you pick up. You know, we want to get everything. And this place, there's so many areas that you can go to and you can talk to multiple people. And most of them don't have anything of real importance to say, but it's just more information. And you will want to go and talk to, even if all they have to say is one sentence or something like that. You will want to go there and just hear what they have to say and see what they can contribute to your understanding of the world around you, which,
Well,
by the
it's
way, is insane. You go to so many bizarre areas. This is actually one of the earlier areas that
yeah.
you have access to in the screenshot right here, and it's so out there. The areas are so different and varied. They're beautifully done. I just can't say enough good things about this game.
But it's like in Oblivion, man. Like I read every book that I pick up in Oblivion. And I found out that with Skyrim, and I probably shouldn't tell you this because you'll probably get on the internet looking for it. But they have a collection of 3 volumes that have every single book from Skyrim that you find out in the world, all of them in these 3 volumes. And they're really nice looking, like collector's edition volumes. I don't know if they're leather bound or pleather bound even, but you might want to look them up because it'd be a cool little addition to have to the collection. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love those things like the flavor texts on items and any
Yeah.
sort of lore. Yeah, I gobble that up. I'm a completionist when it comes to games. I have to
Yeah.
do everything. So if there's like Witcher 3, that's so it's just
Oh,
I will not do the next mission objective until I make all the question marks, all the side quests go away. The same way I played
yeah.
Mass Effect. I did literally everything you could do on Mass Effect 1, on Mass Effect 2, and on Mass Effect 3. Every little side quest, side
Yeah.
mission, like everything. I wanted to
On
consume it
2, you
all.
have to,
Yeah.
because if you don't do it on 2, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, yeah, the whole thing with the galactic
Loyalty.
balance or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So those are my updates. I'm still playing through it. I haven't beaten it yet, but
Good.
I'm even more enamored by it. The voice acting is incredible. We talked about the heavy hitters that they've got on this thing whenever it comes to the voice actors, and it's incredible. And I did want to correct us on one thing. So Kepler is the publisher for the game. Sandfall is the actual development team, and this is their first game. This is
Wow.
Sandfall's very first game. It does have some industry veterans, like people from Ubisoft and stuff like that, but I think their team is about 30 people, but this is their very first game. I have never seen a more impressive first outing. Even if they've got some veterans in their midst, it's still an crazy. I mean, most design teams or development teams have or development studios have veterans in them. They're usually started by veterans. But I have never seen a more impressive first outing ever. in at least not in the modern era of gaming than this. This is insane.
Well, what are you considering the modern era of gaming?
I just mean anything now. I'm sure back whenever video games were first becoming a thing and graphics were a lot less insane than they are now, whenever you know, things that you get away with whenever back in like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, that kind of thing, whenever it was you could, because I believe Metal Gear started, like Hideo Kojima and Metal Gear and that whole thing started on, was it Nintendo or is the SNES? I think it was the SNES, right?
No, it was. I think it was NES because I had
Oh, was
Metal
it?
Gear for
Jeez.
NES.
But so it's like in those days, you could focus on, even though most didn't focus on
Right.
story, most things didn't have a story, but you could focus on those kinds of things because graphics were just kind of what they were. Whereas now, it's sort of a really, it's an expected part of game development is to have these crazy graphics, and these guys did it with graphics that are more impressive than most AAA releases that you're ever going to see.
So I'll tell you a little funny tidbit of gaming history. I played BioWare's second game that they ever came out with. Their
Wow.
first game was called Shattered Steel. It was a mech action game. It was good, very good. PC only. Their second game, though, I put hours and hours into. Do you know what it was? Don't look it
I
up.
I do not.
Baldur's Gate.
Oh wow.
Baldur's Gate for the
Wow.
PC in 1998 was their first. In fact, that was the first game I bought when I graduated from college. Was
Pour
Baldur's
one
Gate.
out for the BioWare that was.
Yeah.
Man, they used to
So
create banger after banger.
it's just funny that we talked about Larry and we talked about BioWare and how they, they kind of fell after the Mass Effect trilogy, and then to realize that they created the precursor that would help Larian eventually achieve greatness.
And kind of be the one that
Yeah.
drinks their milkshake, as it were, and they are now the RPG juggernaut that everybody
Well,
is recognizing.
you look and a lot of people played back in the day, a lot of people played Prince of Persia. Freaking great puzzle games. Just the brutality of failing a puzzle was just bad. But Sands of Time was like the first one where you were like, "Oh my god, we've come a long way." But if it wasn't for that game, there would be no such thing as Assassin's Creed. No such thing. That's what helped them make the leap to doing Assassin's Creed.
Love the Prince of Persia games as well. In fact, they did one more recently that came out that was also really well received side scroller,
Yeah.
but it didn't set the world on fire, but it was still good. It was still good. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
That was
impressed.
another movie, by the way, that I thought was better than it was given credit for.
Jake Gyllenhaal was the prince, right? Was the Prince
Yes.
of Persia?
Yeah. And he made
Yeah.
that movie, to be fair. He made that movie. But yeah.
Well, which is not uncommon for Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
He's usually the highlight of any movie that he's in.
Yeah.
That's my running update of Clair Obscur, and that's also the one little touch that they put on it is at the end of every battle. So one of the things that they do, where they talk about this expedition, and the whole point is that they are trying to save their people, right? With this expedition that they're on, and many have gone before them, and all of them have failed, and they keep these mantras that they will tell each other, because at various times all of them get to the point where they're like, I can't do it anymore, this is not going to work, and they have these different mantras that they will tell each other to
Right.
motivate them to keep going, and they ingrain those in one another, and one of those mantras is "we continue." And that's what I put on my little thing here. And I
Wow.
think it's just a
Okay.
nice little thing that they do is at the end of every battle, you do like an RPG or whatever, anything that you play, you do a battle. There's always a thing of like, okay, your stats, your bonuses, the XP that you earned. And there'll be
Yeah.
a little thing where it says continue, hit X or whatever. And that one says we continue every time, just says we continue. And it's just this little touch that I'm like, I like that. So instead of
And yet,
continue, it says we
and
continue. I love their approach to it. It's a really beautiful story. So
good.
again, could not recommend it more. That is all I have to say on my ongoing update of Clear Obscure Expedition 33.